Ferrari made a big change for 2021, dropping the four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel to replace him with a less experienced but still very talented Carlos Sainz. But boy has it paid off, with the team bouncing back from a dreadful 2020 with both drivers delivering for the Italian team this year. So has Carlos Sainz proven himself against Charles Leclerc in 2021? Let's have a look. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. Swapping out Sebastian Vettel for Carlos Sainz was a bold move. Ferrari had dropped their most experienced driver and replaced him with one that had achieved just 2 podiums in his career so far. In this video I'll take a look at Sainz's first season with Ferrari and how he's taken on the tough challenge of competing with and often beating Charles Leclerc in 2021. I'll then look at the future of that Ferrari team and whether Carlos Sainz should be a key part of their long-term plans. Sainz's move to Ferrari. When Carlos Sainz moved to Ferrari from McLaren for 2021, many expected him to struggle up against Charles Leclerc. Sainz's career in Formula 1 to this point had been fairly turbulent, with a forced loan move away from the Red Bull-owned teams to go to Renault, which was followed by a switch to McLaren and an opportunity to grow with that team as they recovered back up the championship order. And it's partly this turbulent history in the sport that has probably helped Sainz adapt quickly to his new team and his new surroundings. From his first move from Toro Rosso to Renault midway through the 2017 season, to making the switch away from Renault and the Red Bull Academy at the end of 2018 to go to McLaren, and now on to Ferrari. Over this time he's built a routine to help improve his chances when joining a new constructor. When he moved to McLaren, he also moved to the UK to be close to the Woking-based team's factory, a commitment that few drivers in Formula 1 are actually willing to make, and this move gave him the opportunity to connect with the staff at the factory. The constructor and driver looked like a great partnership from the off, and the trust and loyalty that the team showed him was repaid with his excellent performances in 2019 and 2020. It's no surprise that a positive environment creates better results for McLaren, but for Sainz this is probably the first time that he'd experienced that in Formula 1. So of course, he's taken a similar approach with his move to Ferrari. Sainz has moved to Italy, to be close to the factory at Maranello, and according to media reports he visits the factory on a regular basis, to the extent that early on they didn't even have anything for the Spaniard to do when he was there. But they found a way to make Sainz's hands-on approach work, and presumably he contributed to that by leaning on his experience from his time with McLaren. It's also allowed him to quickly build trust with his team and the mechanics, and this, combined with the fact that he got experience driving a 2018 Ferrari car, will have been a factor in why the Spaniard hit the ground running in 2021. And hitting the ground running is exactly what he needed. The Ferrari team has been built around Charles Leclerc ever since the Monegasque driver got promoted to the team for the 2019 season. When Leclerc graduated from the Ferrari Driver Academy into Formula 1, it was clear he was going to be one of the most talented drivers on the grid. But when he beat Sebastian Vettel over the course of 2019 to then completely outdrive the four-time world champion in 2020, it was clear that he would be a driver that Ferrari would invest in for their future. And as such, they've given him a deal which runs all the way to 2024 and are already keen to extend this further. Meanwhile, Sainz was given a 2-year deal with the team that will currently expire at the end of 2022. This was clearly done because the Ferrari team will want to re-evaluate their options around this time, given the fact they have a number of academy drivers racing in Formula 1 and Formula 2. With Mick Schumacher in particular being a driver that seems to be set on being promoted to the Ferrari team at some point in the future. But Carlos Sainz has almost certainly put that move in doubt for at least the foreseeable future, given he's done so well in 2021. But before we get into how Carlos Sainz has proven himself this year, I want to take a moment to ask you to consider subscribing to Behind the Drive. We're aiming to get to 25,000 subscribers by the end of the season, so if you enjoy this video, then please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thanks. How Carlos Sainz has proved himself. Going into 2021, there was a lot for Sainz to prove. He had to be able to perform significantly better than Sebastian Vettel had in 2020 relative to Charles Leclerc, and he got off to a good start, scoring points at 5 of the opening 6 rounds of the season, including the Italian team's first podium with a second place at Monaco. It was a brilliant statement for the Spanish driver, and he was clearly the strongest of all the drivers that had moved teams during that off-season. Now this could well be because he had the opportunity to drive a 2018 Ferrari car, as I mentioned earlier, as well as the fact that he embedded himself into the Ferrari team early on. It could also be the case that the Ferrari team's Challenger is well suited to Sainz, or is a car that he could get comfortable with quickly. but it's difficult to know this for sure. At the midpoint of the 2021 season after Hungary, both Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc were on 80 points. So over the course of the first half, on paper at least, the two Ferrari drivers were evenly matched. But it's worth noting here that Leclerc certainly had the worst of the bad luck at this stage of the year, with his race in Hungary being abruptly ended by Lance Stroll, and he was unable to start on pole position in Monaco after his car wasn't completely repaired following his qualifying crash, which you could argue is on the driver, but I'll save that conversation for another time. So it was a brilliant start to the season for Sainz, and he gained an awful lot of respect from Formula 1 fans as he's been able to arrive in style at Ferrari and put the pressure on his team to extend his contract. And through the second half of the season, he's done the same, and at the time of recording, he's on a 10-race scoring streak, stretching all the way back to the Styrian Grand Prix in June. And that includes the Turkish Grand Prix where the Ferrari driver took a grid drop following an engine penalty. On the qualifying front, Sainz has been a bit behind Leclerc in 2021, as the Monegasque driver leads the head-to-head by 12-5. Although the gap between the two drivers on average has been under a tenth of a second, so it's certainly fine margins between these two drivers on a Saturday. Recently, it's been reported that Sainz has been trying to learn even more from Leclerc's driving style in an attempt to extract more from his Ferrari car. This is an interesting development, which is a testament to the fact that Sainz has done his best to learn as much as he possibly can from the team around him, and, in particular, his teammate, who has vast experience with the Ferrari team. It would be so easy for Sainz to just be comfortable with his performances based on how well he's done this year, but he's desperate to continue to improve for the Ferrari team and be the best against his highly rated teammate. The current state of play in the championship after 17 rounds is Leclerc on 128 points to Sainz's 122.5. To be this close so far into the season, where generally bad luck starts to balance out, is very impressive for the Spanish driver. It's important to make the comparisons with the likes of Daniel Ricciardo, who struggled throughout the season when up against Lando Norris in the McLaren, and Sergio Perez, who's taken quite a while to get up to speed in his Red Bull car. There's no doubt that Sainz has well and truly over-delivered on most people's expectations for 2021. This has only made things more difficult for the Ferrari team. A team on the rise. Ferrari have recovered well from the lows of their 2020 season, and this has been helped by the fact that their driver lineup has almost certainly been the best in 2021. This puts the team on a trajectory that sets them up for success for the new regulations in 2022, but it also creates a potential problem. With both drivers so evenly matched, if the two drivers continue on this path and the team find themselves competing for a championship next year, then they could well end up having to enforce a first and second driver environment, something that the team are not afraid to do. But whether Ferrari are competing for the championship or not in 2022, they have a really strong driver lineup, and this means it's unlikely that they'll change anytime soon. And this shouldn't be an issue. Both drivers can deliver for the Italian team, but it does mean that the junior drivers, and in particular Mick Schumacher, could miss out in the next couple of years. Schumacher's most likely being lined up for that seat in the future, but if Sainz continues to deliver for the team, then he won't be able to graduate into Ferrari. It's currently a good problem for the Ferrari team to have, given they've got some talented drivers ready to take a seat at the team if one of their two drivers drops off the pace. But at the same time, should a driver like Mick Schumacher start to impress other teams, he could easily get signed up by one of their rivals. When Ferrari signed Carlos Sainz, they needed a change, and I expect the Spanish driver has brought a breath of fresh air to the team, allowing them to take this significant step forward. His performances have clearly helped the team compete for third in the constructors' battle against McLaren, and I expect his involvement in the work at the factory could well help them develop their 2022 challenger to his liking, something that could be crucial for the success of different drivers as we move into this new era. It's clear that Sainz wants to be with the Ferrari team for the long haul, and he's certainly dedicated to them, but I worry for him on two fronts. Number one would be if he competes too closely with Charles Leclerc, and the pair start to damage each other's chances. The team's way is to have a driver at the front and a second driver there ready to support. With Sainz and Leclerc, you have more of a Hamilton-Rosberg type partnership as opposed to a Hamilton-Bottas pairing. The second point would be the fact that the Ferrari team have those options waiting in the wings, in talented drivers that could be ready for the top team's seats in the next few years. But Sainz can obviously avoid this by continuing to do what he's doing, and that's delivering for the team, being willing to work with them in races to bring home better results and working with them closely at the Maranello factory to produce a car that could well be suited to him for next year. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Sainz develops as a driver for Ferrari, But what I know for sure is the fact that he's well and truly proven his ability this season up against a well-respected talent in Charles Leclerc. What do you make of Carlos Sainz this year? Has he proven himself against Leclerc, or does he need to do more? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.